Right, so reviewing the bivariate analysis section of statistics, it really was pretty much all correlation and regression lines, okay? So we're going to be going back over that just to refresh your memory. Again, you will need a calculator because finding correlation and the regression line, when it's not the line of best fit, the one that actually comes in your calculator, you'll need that. So to start off, correlation, some of you guys did this for your IA, so you know that it's already the relationship between two pieces of data. It is represented by the variable R, okay? Hopefully you haven't forgotten that. And then the description or correlation, whether it's very weak, moderate, or strong. Those were the intervals in which you determined that. If it ever asked you to describe the correlation, we use those particular values to determine if it was strong or weak or moderate or whatever it was. This also applied to a negative relationship, okay? Those numbers as well. So if it was 0 to negative 0.25, it was still very weak. And then negative 0.25 to 50 was weak, and so on and so forth. If data had a correlation of 0 or a correlation coefficient of 0, what did that mean? There was no correlation. And if it had a R value of 1, it was what? It was perfect. Perfectly linear. Now, this was important because in order to determine your regression line, it was only if you had a moderate or a strong relationship, okay? You never did it for weak or very weak. When you had to draw it by hand, so a paper 1 type of question, drawing lines of best fit by hand, remember you had to find the mean point between your X and your Y. You had to plot that. And remember, we plotted it with a point, and we circled it, and we labeled it M, or if it asked us to label it any other way, but that was the labeling for the mean point. And then we drew our line so that our data was equally spread out amongst it, a little bit like half above, half below. And it intersected the y-axis. That was a major thing. So when you're drawing your lines of best fit by hand, and even your regression lines, you want to make sure it has a y-intercept. That's why I put it in capital letters, because that's the one thing I've noticed with students that they tend to forget about when they're drawing that line. Okay? And of course, if you ever have to make a graph yourself, that little bottom part is just a reminder. Please label your axes, not just with the scale, but also with what they are. So if your x value is time, you write time at the bottom with your scale. And if it's heights or whatever, then you put height and then your scale, okay? Because those are easy points, again, that you can lose just by something so little like that. So don't forget about those. All right. The regression line, of course, is done with your calculator. It is in that form of y equals mx plus b, or the actual version in your calculator is y equals ax plus b. So a would be your slope and b would be your y-intercept. And what we're going to do now is we're actually going to use our calculator and do, I think, like 2 questions, okay? After 2 kind of gets a little redundant, right? But do be aware that when you come in on the day of your test to take paper 2, the calculator, where you can use your calculator is going to be reset, which means your R, your correlation coefficient, when you go through the whole process to find it, is not going to show up unless you turn it on. Okay, because your calculator gets reset. All right? So, to refresh your memory on how to get your correlation coefficient back, your R. Remember, that's when we had to go to the, who remembers? You had to go to the catalog. That's second 0. Second 0 takes you to the catalog. Also, if you forget where anything is, like normal CDF or anything like that, it's in the catalog, okay, as well. And then we had to go down to what letter? D. Since it's already on your alpha feature, if you just press X to the negative 1, it takes you straight down to your D's. And then you want to go to diagnostic on. Yes. So you'll scroll all the way down to where it says diagnostic on. You'll click enter and enter again, and then it'll be there. And it will be there for the rest of the time unless your batteries fall out of your calculator or you accidentally reset it or the RAM resets itself.
Is there any reason that we would need to turn it off?
Take out the batteries out?
No, like turn off the diagnostic.
No. So once the diagnostic is on, it doesn't affect anything else. Okay? So that's how you get your R there, right? It's the fact this is default settings. So whenever you reset it, it goes back that way. All right, so now if everyone did that, just to refresh their memory, the muscle memory, we should be good to find this here. Okay, it says the table shows, you don't have to write this down, post in the video, I'll post the slide so you can have this, you don't have to write it down. The following table shows the sales, Y $1 million, of the company X years it opened. The relationship is modeled by a linear regression line. We have to find the values of A and B. So to do this, where do we go? Before we get to edit, we got to go to stat. So my calculator is about to hide the data because it's just that large of a screen. So you might want to go ahead and go to stat and then go to edit and then type in your data. Okay, 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, 20, 30, 36, and 52. Is anybody missing their L1?
Well, I'm missing an L2. I don't know.
That is going to have an effect, okay? You've got to make sure that you have L1 and L2. I know, oh, actually it's not covering. Perfect. So stat, edit. To get rid of your data that's already there, you don't press delete, you press clear and enter. If you press delete, it actually gets rid of your L1. If this happens to you, you have two things, okay? Good old Scott said, reset your calculator. That's true, you can do that. But if you do that, then you just turn your diagnostic off and you gotta go back through it again. You can also press stat, go to setup editor, option 5, and then click enter. So again, that's stat, option 5, enter. When you do that, it brings back your L1. Uh-huh. It won't do it. It won't. I don't know about the old one. Yeah, you can actually, you can't make it type of in, so it actually might work out. But I think you still have to change it. All right, then we put our data in. Did you put it in already? Okay, let me just catch up. Oh, just kidding. Awesome. All right, so we got our data in. Now to get our regression line, where do we go? Stat. We go over to calc. Option 4. Yes, there is an option 8 that's a linear regression line, but it puts it backwards. We've been using 4 all year, so just use 4. Now, if your calculator looks like mine, I will address both ways. If your calculator looks like mine, yes, you want L1 in your X list and L2 in your Y list. Your frequency list needs to be clear. So if there's an L2 sitting there, go down and delete it, okay? Storing your regression equation is only, I will only suggest doing that if you really just have a lot of time left over and you want to just kind of double check to make sure, if this one actually asks you to graph it yourself, then I would actually store it. But other than that, you don't need to. So go down to calculate, click enter, and you'll have all your information. For those whose linreg just pops up like so, you're going to have to do L1, comma, L2. And you will need to do that. Otherwise, it's just going to take your X information and do all the stuff with it. Okay? And for everybody's knowledge, where's L1 located? Second 1 and L2? So second 2 gives me L2. Where's my comma? Above the 7, because everybody needs to know where comma is when we do normal CDF and stuff like that, okay? So we go down to calculate, and when you click enter, does everybody get this information? So our answer is for A, Y equals, or actually, it's not Y equals, actually it says find the value of A and B. What's A? And B? And the value of R? 1.98? That would make no sense. Okay. It doesn't ask you, but I am going to ask you, describe this relationship. Strong and positive. Hence, estimate the sales in millions of dollars after 7 years. Hence, that means you're going to use this equation and plug in what? Plug in 7 for x. Do that real quick. How much am I rolling in dough? $34.8 million. All right. Coming back? Yeah? All right. This one is on you. Okay? Again, you don't have to write this down. I will post the slides for you, but you guys are doing this one. Write down your answers in your notes. Ooh, not that one. Wait. There we go. All right. All right, so we're good, right? So we put our data in. Let's go ahead and let's pull up our regression equation. All that's still good for me. Remember L1, L2 for those whose calculator does not look like mine. We calculated, and did you guys get these values? Okay, so it says write down the value of A and B. What was the value of A again? 0.486. What is B? And it stopped after that? Okay. Okay, that's a good figure. Now, I will say this. If it says write down the equation of the regression line, make sure it does have a y equals, okay? Because that does make it an equation. In this case, you're just writing down A and B, so you were good. Hence, use this to estimate a man whose height is 172. So you should have just plugged in 172 for x to get what? One more time, a little louder. You're fine there. 71.2 kilograms. We're talking about his weight. Now write down the correlation coefficient. That was right there, still on your calculator. 0.997. So which two would you circle? Strong, positive. Awesome stuff. Okay. And to be honest, that's really kind of like what you're looking at with the Bivarate analysis part of the IB exam. As you notice, both of these I did pull them from past paper, so they were both the short response ones on the calculator section. Okay, so you can kind of pretty much bank on these types being in the calculator one. Line of best fit. Those could be more paper one because, you know, you're pretty much drawing it by hand. And then if they ask you a question like how it's asking an A double I, you would base it off of your line to find the answer. So that's pretty much the sum of it. But just again, remember, your calculator is not going to have the diagnostic on, so you have to turn it on. Okay? All right. But that's your bivariate.